Hi, I'm Isaac from MAHLE Service Solutions, and today we're setting up and using a MAHLE ATX-280 to perform an automatic fluid transmission service. It features cooler mode and dipstick mode service. The ATX-280 is completely automatic from temperature monitoring to start the service all the way through the complete exchange. It has an onboard database that shows pictures of the transmission and components, as well as generating a customer level report at the very end and onboard database to hold those reports. Okay, now we're going to go through the unboxing of your ATX-280 unit. You'll receive a box on a pallet like this. There will be multiple staples on each side that are holding this box to the pallet. For this case, we've already removed those staples. You will need some sort of pliers or screwdriver to remove those staples. Once you do that, you can just lift the box off. And in this case, the plastic covering came off with the box, but there will be sometimes a plastic bag around the unit that you will remove. Then the next step here is that you will see that there are two zip ties on the front, as well as two banding ties on the back. And you'll need a pair of pliers to cut those off. Okay, once you have all the banding off of the unit, next thing you want to call in a buddy to help you unload it off of the pallet. So each grab both sides of the unit, lift up, walk it forward, drop it down. After you have the unit off of the pallet, next thing you want to do, there is a bag on the left side of this unit that contains your power cord here, as well as a filter, strainer, and a USB packet with manual and catalog information in it. This filter here, strainer, actually goes underneath this top part, right above the drain hole that goes into the used container. You just pop that on, drop that, and then we can hook up our power cord. And then you can power on the unit by flipping this switch. Okay, the very first screen that you will see after the unit is fully booted is the instructions to remove the foam on the back of the unit. Those are located underneath of the new and used tank load cells. It's very important that you do this before you commission, because there is a calibration check on those sensors, and if there's foam in place, it will affect that calibration. So we'll remove that foam now. Okay, once that foam is removed, you can click the next button. And here it'll give you a list of all the Wi-Fi connections that are available. Click the one for your shop and enter the information. This is an important step to do for making sure that you have the very latest updates, as well as being able to automatically register the machine. So we have one that's connected already. Click next. And this is where it's checking for the latest software, and it's going to download the very latest software, making sure your unit's most up to date. This process can take a couple of minutes. Okay, so in this case, the unit says that it's updated, so we'll click next here. This is just saying that we need to verify all the sensors on the machine before you can use it. We'll click OK. This is very important, like I said, is that to make sure that all the tanks are empty and installed. So there's the two tanks on the back that need to be completely empty, both the new and the used tank. And then you have your additive bottle that's on the side of the unit that you need to make sure that is not only empty, but also attached to the load cell connection. Once that's good, you can click next. And this is going to go through all the sensors that are on this machine, and it's going to perform a self-test on them. Do not click skip, always click next. Okay, you can see that it passed all of the initial checks, everything being positive. Another verification is actually the light for the sight glasses on the left-hand side of this screen will also illuminate, and that also gives you an indicator that it has passed all of its self-checks. Okay, once it has passed all these self-checks, you can click Next, and you'll be brought to the home screen. It's very important. The next step here, if it didn't walk through the out-of-box in this case, is to click the Settings menu and Setup. Go into the account information, and in here, fill out your name, your address, country, state, city, and at least an email. Finally, click the Accept button and click the Save button. This will then register your unit with our servers so you can have support as well as future updates. Okay, at this point you have successfully set up your machine and you are free to fill the new tank with your desired fluid as well as your additive bottle to be ready for its first service. Now let's perform an exchange with the cooler line mode feature of this unit. Locate and disconnect the transmission cooler lines at a convenient location. Install the proper fitting adapters to each disconnect point and connect the 12-inch adapter hoses to the cooler lines. Attach the two black cooler hoses to the 12-inch adapter hoses. And you can attach hose 1 and hose 2, and it doesn't matter which one you connect where, it automatically detects the flow of fluid. Okay, on the home screen here we've got a total of 8 buttons, 4 of them related to the cooler line flush mode, 2 related to the dipstick mode, and then 2 service functions for emptying the tanks. So the very first one is the onboard database. That will traverse through all the vehicle database, get all the specifications for the vehicle, and drop those specifications into the automatic mode. If you already know all your fluid capacities, you could just open up automatic mode and enter those yourself. If you want a quicker mode where you're not going to be doing any detergent or any additives after the fact, you can just click the AT flushing, and that will not have those particular steps. It will only do the cooler mode flush only. And of course, manual mode, now you can select either of those functions, which would be the detergent, the recovery and flush, and then the additive. And you can do those individually in the manual mode. Okay, we're going to search for our Ford F-150, a 2020 model. So we can click the onboard database here. We can first go by make. In this case, we have a Ford truck. Scroll down to the later 2020 model. Click that. And this is an F-150 pickup. And then we want to find the particular engine. In this case, this is a 2.7 liter EcoBoost, which is actually the 164 cubic inches. But they all have the same Ford 10R80 transmission. Now you can see in this view, we've found the transmission for this particular vehicle. It'll always show a picture of that transmission. Depending on the make and model of that vehicle, it will show a filter picture, a gasket, and sometimes even fill and drain port locations. In this case, it's just a static transmission picture, just to make sure you can confirm that we have selected the right transmission. Then on the right side, they have the initial oil quantity. So if you just drain out the pan itself, there's roughly 5.1 quarts in the transmission. If the complete system is actually 13.2. From here, once you're confirmed that this is indeed the vehicle and transmission that you want to work on, you can click Next. In this window, you can see that it carried over from that database the 13.2 quart capacity. Also in this window here, you can also add extra flushing.
So that's the nominal capacity of the full transmission, but when you're doing flushing, typically you will want to flush an extra 1 to potentially 4 quarts, depending upon the system and how dirty it is. The final option below here to set is the minimum oil transmission temperature. So it'll actually monitor the temperature of the oil circling through the system. There will be a display at the very top up here showing you that temperature, and then it will only start recovering once it's reached this minimum temperature. In the very first menu here is actually picking the oil type. So in this case, you can click this, and right now we're just using standard, but if you had your own defined oils in there, there is a user defined section. On the far side here is your additive selection. So you can add a detergent, which means it will actually inject detergent, let it cycle for a set amount of time, and then start the recovery process. And then there's also the protector that will be injected at the very end of the flush process. There is an additive bottle on the side, and it will prompt you when to attach the right bottle. To change the amount or the time, you can select that, and you can select your quantities. And just like the transmission oil, you can set up names for your detergents as well as your protectors, and you can change it from the standard to any user defined that you might have set up. And again, you can do the same thing for your protector. Okay, in this case we are not going to be doing those particular operations. The final option in this view is the AT pan removal. So you can see that it is deselected right now. Now it is selected. When it is selected, it will recover as much oil as it can from the transmission pump. Once it detects there's no more oil coming out, it'll prompt you to turn the vehicle off, ask you to drop the drain pan, change out the filter, reinstall the pan, and then empty the rest of any oil that you collected outside of the machine into the drain of the ATX-280 machine itself, so that way we can record the total amount of used oil recovered. Then we will continue on with the actual flush process. If you have this deselected, then it will immediately go from the detergent portion right into the flush process and then right into the protector without any prompts or interruptions in between. Once this is fully set up, you can click the start button. So it'll prompt that you want to do a flush to make sure that there is no cross-contamination. We did change that tank so we can confirm, and that'll ask if we want to do a decontamination process or zero cross-contamination process. In this case, we know that the fluid was compatible, so we will skip this process. Okay, this is going to be our service screen. You can see your used tank. Right now we're nearly empty at 0.3 quarts, and our new tank quantity we have 24.7 right now. So we'll click start, and telling you to connect the hose 1 and hose 2 to the transmission adapters that we had installed. And again, it doesn't matter which hose you connect to which adapter, it'll automatically detect the flow of the fluid. Now it's going to prompt you to turn the engine on. Not only does it show the direction, but you see here, this is the temperature of the oil that's coming in. As you see, it's currently at 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So you don't need to hook up a diagnostic scan tool or try to find the menu on the vehicle for the transmission temp. It always shows it on the machine itself during the recovery. So at this point, this is where you would drop the pan on the transmission and replace the filter and gaskets as necessary. So once you've replaced those items, resealed the transmission, you can click OK. And now you need to pour any additional oil that you might have collected from that pan. You can pour it into the top of the ATX-280 unit here. There's actually a drain at the top that will drain directly into the used tank. Okay, after you've recovered all the oil into the unit, you can click the check mark here. And now it's doing a full calculation on the total amount of oil that was recovered, and it's going to inject now back into the vehicle before it starts the actual flush process. So it's basically just refilling everything that's been recovered. In this case, we didn't pour anything into the machine here, so it's only calculating 0.16 quarts was actually added. Say okay. And now it's saying total that we recovered from the pan was 2.7 quarts. Also, the manual drain was 0.1 quarts, so it's now going to inject 2.8 quarts back into the vehicle before it starts the flush routine. Okay, now we can start the vehicle. And now we're starting the rest of the complete flush process. Okay, once you get to this spot here, that means the complete flush is done, and basically it's in bypass mode right now. So the valves have switched inside the unit, so it's just completing the loop back to the transmission, so it's not recovering any more oil, nor is it injecting any new oil. So, all right, at this point, now the vehicle service is complete. You can shut the vehicle off, disconnect the hoses, and reinstall the cooler lines for the customer. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is remove the dipstick. In this case, it's relatively small. Once you remove the dipstick from the vehicle, you want to grab your dipstick hose and move this black plastic piece 1 inch higher than the dipstick itself, or lower in this case. So this is the mounting point here with the threads. So we want to be roughly 1 inch below those threads, those mounting points there, to set the depth of this hose. Okay, with the dipstick port removed, you take the dipstick tube and feed it down into the hole. In this case, to be roughly close to bottoming out. And you want the black part to be flush with the top of the dipstick hole. Once you have the dipstick inserted into the vehicle, you can attach the 12-inch hose adapter to the dipstick tube, and then the other end of the 12-inch adapter to hose 1 of the unit. Okay, now we're going to perform a dipstick flush. So that you see there's 2 different modes on here. There's dipstick flush and dipstick manual mode. The manual mode is purely for recovery only, or just to inject fluid into the transmission. So we're going to do a dipstick flush. Again, you can select your fluid. You select your nominal capacity of this vehicle, or whatever you want to flush. In this case, we'll just do 3 quarts, say, just for demonstration purposes. That typically is your nominal capacity of the transmission. You can select additional quarts to flush through there. Then we have a protector, so it has the ability to inject an additive after the fact. So after it completes the flush with the normal transmission fluid, it will inject whatever pre-defined amount of additive that you select on this screen. In this case, we are just going to exchange the oil. The last option is the AT pan removal. So if it is deselected, like it is right now, it'll start the process by removing 1 liter of oil, injecting 1 liter of oil, and it will cycle back and forth until it has reached the nominal plus the extra flushing capacity. If you select the AT pan removal, it will continuously siphon oil out of the transmission until it can't pull anything anymore. It will then prompt you to drop the transmission pan and perform any filter change or gasket change necessary. Reinstall that pan, and then it'll continue to do a 1 liter out, 1 liter in until that nominal plus extra fluid capacity is met. So we are going to be doing, in this case, just 3 quarts and with the AT pan removal. So we're expecting that it's going to extract all the fluid out of the system, prompt us to lower that pan, and then it'll inject that amount. So we can click start, click start again. It's telling us using hose 1 to connect to the dipstick adapter. Unlike the flush mode that automatically detects which hose that you have connected, dipstick mode can only be ran with hose 1. Okay, detected that there is no more oil to be removed. So now it's prompting you to change out the transmission filter. And then if there's any additional oil in that transmission pan or any other oil that might have been recovered from that vehicle, is now prompting you to put that into the top of the ATX-280 so that it'll drain into the used tank so it can calculate how much total oil was recovered from the vehicle. So it can inject that amount back in. Okay, in this case we did not actually drain anything into the unit, so it said that there was 0 quarts removed, and this will just confirm that yes, that is correct. Overall, it's saying that it removed 2.2 quarts from the dipstick hose itself, and then 0 quarts were removed manually via the pan. It will now inject those 2.2 quarts back into the transmission and then prompt to start the vehicle after this to complete the rest of the flush. Okay, now it's going to ask you to turn the engine on so that way all the new oil is mixing with the old so it can complete the dipstick flush. Okay, it has reached the full capacity that was set in the beginning. It's telling you the current oil temperature, and now it's asking, do you want to add additional oil to the transmission or if you need to recover some. If the oil level looks correct, you can click the X button, and you will now see a summary of the procedure. And again, you can click the print icon, enter the vehicle or owner information, customer information, click next, and you can see your final report, which again you can email, save to a USB drive, or network print. And if you're complete, you can click X to exit this, and it brings you back to the home procedure here. So at this point, you can remove the dipstick hose from the vehicle, reinstall the dipstick itself, or if there's a fill cap, reinstall that fill cap, and your service is now complete.